And yeah, we've just got a minute to go, I think, and a few more people joining us, but I think we'll make a start anyway.
Sure.
And thanks to everyone for coming along this evening, and thanks especially to Tony for his presentation tonight. I'm super excited to hear about the new Vortex product, and I've really enjoyed using ProjectX tablets, and I've heard a bit about all the exciting things that you've had in the wings with this new project. So I'm really excited to be hearing about it. Tony's been on the rally for 2 years, and this will be your third year, won't it, on the Pacific
Yeah.
Rally? And so he's had lots of experience navigating around the South Pacific, and including some of the problems and things that we have along the way. So he'll be telling us a wee bit more about those as well as we go along. So Tony, I'll hand over to you to make start.
Thank you very much, Vicky. I appreciate that. Yeah, as Vicky said, I've been we first did the rally back in 24. And we were just going to do a quick spin around the Pacific and come back to New Zealand at the end of the season. But our boat is still up in the Pacific 2.5 years later. And I suspect that a number of people who go up there for the first time this year might be in the same position we are in time to come. And yeah, Vicky's been really great to work with while we've been up there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show a couple of slides just to put some stuff in context, and then I'm going to do a show and tell. Hopefully everything behaves itself. And then we can do a Q&A session after that. Now, let me just share my screen. And then I'm going to, let's just see whether or not.
Yep, I can see Vortex Scout
Yep.
and a blue screen now,
No,
and now a black screen. Oh, now your boat off of a beautiful island in
yeah,
Fiji.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess this is one of the reasons we do what we do. And I think a number of people have been up there before will know where this little spot is. It's a little spot just north of Musket Cove. And it's our absolute favorite place for snorkeling and diving. But it's also a place that you've got to be really, really careful as you get closer. So I think one of the things that makes what we do special is that we tend to want to get really close to beautiful things, and beautiful things are often dangerous things. So this is a spot where ideally you want to come up into about 3 or 4 meters of water, drop your anchor on the white sand, fall back. The stern of our boat there is in about 15 meters, and the front of our boat, the bow of the boat's about 3.5 meters there. And you saw as we came in there the spectacular reefs around there. And as the drone comes down and down and sort of gets more to boat level, you start to realize that the view from down here near the water is not quite like the view from up there. You just keep an eye on those breaking waves over there. I'll reference them a bit later. But you can see that's. I mean, I'm still a little higher than the boat. So what you see here, all right, is very different to what you start to see down here. Um, Now, this is the let me just get rid of that in case anybody can see it. This is the same spot. I can never pronounce the name of this island. We call it Tom's Island because a fella called Tom pointed it out to us 2 years ago, and we keep going back there. So we just noticed Tom's Island. And if you're coming in from the north, you'd think that if this is an avionics chart, you'd come around this corner in reasonably deep water, you'd cut across here, drop on the sand, and then drop off the edge. If you actually followed that chart, if you could have a look here, between waypoint 6 and waypoint 7, you'll see a couple of wee waves there. Those are the waves that I pointed out earlier in that video. So this is a very good example where your standard charts, whether it's been avionics or CMAP, because they both get their core data from the same places, are basically wrong. And it leads you into a lot of trouble if you simply take them as gospel. Um, this was a vessel that in 23 joined the rally real late, coming through into the Lao group because they wanted to use Vicky's special power to get them checked in at the Lao group, which they were doing back then. And they came through and they hit a reef which they say was 600 meters away from where they were chartered to be. and it didn't end well for them. In 24, when we came up here, came up to Fiji. One of the vessels that we got to know real well in Opa before we left also managed to run themselves onto something which the charts at the zoom levels they were looking at didn't, said weren't there. And they ended up abandoning ship in the wee hours of the morning, and the ship was lost as well. So these sorts of activities make my wife very, very, very nervous, more nervous a sailor than she'd normally be. And so my first year, the year 24, was all about trying to get as much safety and visibility about what was going on. Now, we moved a lot of ProjectX tablets.
Sorry, Tony. I accidentally muted you. Can you unmute yourself?
There we go.
I was just blocking out some background noise, so sorry about that. That was me.
That's all
You're
sweet.
good. You're good. You're back.
Now, we had a family, an elderly couple who were with us in 24, and they sailed a lot with us. And they ended up in Australia, and then they were going up to Indonesia over the sort of Christmas and New Year period. And at about oh 10 o'clock one evening, we got a call from them saying that they had an issue that the Simrad chart plotter had an accident. Somebody pulled the cable out of the back of it and it shorted it out when it came out and it was no longer working. All they had now to use was their ProjectX tablet, but they didn't have the Indonesian charts on it because they only loaded up the Fiji to Australia because that was the first leg they did. So we luckily they had Starlink, and it took us a while, but we managed to get some charts up to them that allowed them to do the rest of the passage. But what they then asked us to do was get an SD card for them, load it up with Indonesia. Now, Indonesia is about 288 gigabits of data. So we put one of those together for them. We popped it in the DHL, and $375 and 10 days of delay in Sarong. They got the chip, put it in their ProjectX tablet, and that allowed them to continue through Indonesia. Now that whole process we've been through a number of times with various boats. Um, the ProjectX tablet is a fantastic tablet, and OpenCPN is a fantastic piece of software, but it was developed close to 20 years ago now, and it's starting to get really long in the tooth. There are a number of challenges which we'll get onto. And I kind of have this love-hate relationship with OpenCPN. I love it to death because it's seen me through a couple of seasons up in the islands. It's standard. It's everybody kind of knows how to use it when you play with it for a while. It's one of these 10-90 things where if you can get 10% of the features of it nailed, you've got 90% of the capability that you need to actually see yourself safely through. It's open. There's a bunch of really cool sailors who keep it up to date and write bits and pieces of it and fix bits and pieces of it. And it's been used all around the globe by heaps of people. And those are the things I love about it. The things that I hate about it is that the MB tile files that it runs on that gives you what you want are generally being downloaded from commercial sites over years and years and years. So A, they're not particularly up to date, and there are questions over the legitimacy. It's a little bit like back in the 90s when everybody was downloading their favorite artist or video off Napster. Everybody was doing it, and enough people did it, it made it all right, but it wasn't really all right because that content kind of belongs to somebody else. And the fact that it was an open source project meant that when things broke, you really relied on the guys who were writing it to get the time together to fix it. And the updates were irregular, and often when an update came out, it actually broke a couple of things at the same time, and you never really knew when you were going to get up to date. So we had a couple of periods last year where things broke in OpenCPN, and it took weeks for those to be resolved. And during that period, it was creating a little bit of havoc for people who were trying to load new charts and what have you. And as I mentioned earlier, it's an old architecture. It was kind of they started writing it before the internet existed, as we know it today. So it doesn't make use of any of the cool stuff that's available on the internet now. And the biggest thing I hated about OpenCPN on the ProjectX tablets was that it was a real challenge getting charts on and off. OpenCPN and Android between them conspire to hide everything away. And it's really it's a challenge for any third party. We'd sort of developed techniques over a long period of time where we could get the charts on there reasonably slickly, but I would challenge any normal human being to be able to do it in less than 3 or 4 hours for a single chart. So yeah, that was what we were doing. Just mentioned this earlier. And most people probably know that the charts that we ship with OpenCPN and the MB files are generally sourced from Google or Bing or Esri, which is the supply of ArcGIS. There are a number of scraped Navionics charts out there as well. We're kind of walking on the edge of whether or not it's legitimate or not. But I think in terms of safety, everybody turns a blind eye because basically it's making sailors safer. And I can't imagine one of these big guys coming and beating up a sailor because they're using this content to make themselves safer. Um, all right, so about a year ago, we started to look at what would be ideal in the world of sailing in the Pacific in terms of an instrument that would give you everything you need, didn't have those issues that Sarah and Bob did and spending $375 in 10 days waiting to get charts. Because we live in the world of endless connectivity. Most of us these days have Starlink. Most of us have 4G in our phones when we get to the islands. Most of us have a reasonable amount of kit and capability on the boat when we head up to the Pacific. And we just felt that nothing out there today was really leveraging that as best as it could be. So we reached out to a number of satellite operators and basically legitimized what Project X was finally. We kind of went, look, we want this to be something which we can go to market with. We put a lot of effort into building out this platform because it was kind of if I could have the 10 things that I wanted for 2026 in my hand, what would they be? And that would be, fantastic satellite imagery that I could get globally without having to worry about what I'd downloaded before I left or who had a hard drive or an SD card with some files on it. There were tools like anchoring and tides and weather and all these sorts of things that we were sort of making do with, but from a million different sources and at a million different qualities and quantities. The number of times that we woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning because the anchor alarm was going off just because it felt like it. It wasn't, we hadn't dragged or anything. It just was it sort of got too close to a borderline or something. So that was the kind of the background to what we did. It was about high-res charts. It was about global accessibility. It was about basically not having to plan too much, but still having the ability to plan if you knew you might be offline or you were going through a particularly tricky spot where you couldn't risk not having that particular satellite content available if your Starlink or your 4G did go down. So we first of all started with completely overhauling the hardware. Our Project X was a really good little device. It was a really rugged. You could drop it, you could stomp on it, you could bang it into things. It didn't break. It had a battery life that went on and on forever. And we loaded it up and it worked. It just worked. We had a couple of we ran a survey late last year amongst the 100 odd people that taken on the Project X tablets last year. And we then ranked the top 3 or 4 rankles that people had around the hardware. The top rankle was that the screen wasn't bright enough. And I don't think anybody has ever seen a screen and they said, yeah, that's bright enough. But in this instance, it was what we call a 400 is the 400 nit screen on the tablets that we shipped out last year. Your typical iPad is around that or slightly more, some of the more expensive iPads. Well, that was the first one. The next one was that the screen was beautifully glossy, which meant that every time you had your back to the sun, you basically saw yourself in the screen rather than the charts you were trying to use. So anti-glare was the next thing on our shopping list. And the third big thing was a more consistent GPS. The problem with most handheld devices that have GPSs in them is that they're very sensitive to how you hold them, where they are, what your bimini is made out of, which way you're facing, and all sorts of things. So the OpenCPN had a habit of every now and again, if it didn't quite like the satellite picture, it would kind of turn your boat sideways. It would do a couple of skips and jumps, which wasn't, totally confidence building when you were trying to get through a tight passage. So a more commercial grade satellite tracking or GPS tracking system was on our list as well. So we did a lot of research. We've worked with a number of suppliers offshore. We did a 10-day trip to China and visited a number of factories that we've been prototyping hardware with. And we settled on what you see in front of you. Um, the having the external GPS antenna has made this device significantly more robust in terms of receiving your GNSS signals. This hardware is typically used in survey with survey companies who are surveying building sites or roads. So they generally need sub 1 meter accuracy on their survey and actually down to a centimeter accuracy. But that antenna would have pushed doubled the price of this unit. Um, the buttons on the side are really good in terms of being able to quickly get around and navigate between apps and between functions without having to touch the screen. And the whole device is sort of made out of a composite titanium material with the rubber bumpers around the edge to make it tough and rough. Um, so that was a big step forward in terms of the hardware for us. We consider this to be more a marine device than a tablet. It's got the ability to receive Wi-Fi, so it'll tie into your Starlink. It's got a SIM card slot in it, so you can pop a 4G SIM in it if you want to. It's got Bluetooth. It's got all sorts of bits and pieces and ways of connecting itself up. Let's go on. The center of the universe is what we call Vortex Nav, and it's our replacement for OpenCPN. It's OpenCPN for 2026 and beyond. When people look at it and play with it, there's a sense of OpenCPN in it. There's some good ideas that we may have borrowed. But we've also started with a completely blank piece of paper and said, what can the current world of technology give us in terms of the ultimate navigation solution? So I'll do a little demo later and we can take some Q&A, but that is the core capability of the tablet. And what its party trick is that it has this probably 5 or 6 out of the box sources of satellite imagery. And it streams that satellite imagery directly from its source on the internet, not from the local SD card or from anywhere else, but it actually brings it down. So basically, if you wake up one morning and one of the satellite providers have updated all their satellite imagery for a certain area, that's the satellite imagery you get that morning. And if you suddenly fly to the other side of the planet and you walk out of an airport and get on a boat in the Mediterranean and you turn it on, the whole Mediterranean is there for you. Think of it as Google Maps, but for a marine environment. When you go to China or South America and you get off the plane, you turn your phone on and you go to Google Maps. There you are. You got everything you need. It's all there. You don't have to load anything. And that's the kind of approach we took with that. What you need is there, and it's not only there, but it's down to incredibly high zoom levels because we've legitimized this whole process with the satellite providers. We've got one of our providers providing us zoom levels down to 20. Now, anybody who's played with OpenCPN and MB-tile files, generally those files will run to 16 or 17 zooms. And for every zoom level you go up, it's 4 times the density of the previous zoom level. I'll do a little demo later. That's Manor Island on the left there, and I'll show you some rocks and pebbles in that little pass that goes in there that you can see at zoom 20. We've also built in a tide engine so that people can get accurate tides anywhere on the globe. It uses the built-in GPS to position you. It's got all the over 1,000 tide stations, and it will give you all the normal tide information, including lunar stuff, sunrise, sunset, moonrise, moonset, next full moon, etc., etc. And a party trick that we've built into this, which is something that I built specifically out of habit from the way we did things last year, is this panel on the side that slides out, which actually has an animation on the side of it, which shows your boat floating in the water. It reads your depth from your NEMA network if you're connected to your NEMA network. It knows where the tides are at the moment, so it knows exactly how much water is between the bottom of your boat and the bottom of the sea. And it actually puts animation in there. It will knows what the next low tide is going to be. So it'll actually pre-calculate what your clearance below the boat will be at the next low tide where you are currently. And you can set thresholds in there and alarms, and it'll turn little boxes red and make little lights flash if your boat swings on anchor and where you are isn't where you were when you dropped your anchor. The seabed's a bit different there, and you are likely to run within your parameters, say less than a meter and a half, whatever you've set for yourself on that. And it's a real live animation. So as you watch it and as you swing in your anchor, if you glance over there now and again, you'll get a real view of the space between the bottom of your boat and the bottom of the ocean. We've used the same engine in our anchoring engine. So you can drop an anchor. The way you set that up is you basically take it, because this has always been a real schlep for us. We never remember to set our anchor alarm at the time we physically drop the anchor where we're going to be on the boat. We always anchor, fall back, and then go, has anybody set the anchor alarm? So, and generally the answer is no. So what we do with our solution is you grab the tablet and there's an arrow on the top that you can move around. I'll show you a little later. You point it to where you drop the anchor. You tell us how much anchor chain you let out. In the settings, we know how far you are back your wheel is from the front of your boat, which is now your GPS position. We ask you to tell us what type of chain you got, 8 mil, 10 mil, 12 mil. And we ask for the height of your bow roller to the water. And we do some engineering catenary calculations, and we calculate the shape of your chain through the water in terms of the wind speeds and stuff like that. And we work out exactly where the anchor is and exactly where you are. We then use our tide engine in real time because you generally anchored at some time between low tide and high tide. So the position you've fallen back in is based on where the tides are. As the tide goes out, your boat will go back because you're in shallower water, and as the tide comes in, you'll move forward because there's deeper water underneath you. So we basically draw a donut on the screen and we show you where your stern will be because it's all about the stern for us. Whenever we're swinging, all I know you're worried about is where my stern is. And it shows you a donut is where the stern will be at the next low tide and where your stern will be at the next high tide in a circle round. So, and as you move around, that little chart on the side there, little graphic on the side will show you what's happening under your boat and how the water is moving. You can kind of see it on this picture on the right here. You've got the various donut circles. You've set your parameters and alarms. So, and this is actually a really cool spot in Musket Cove. Anybody's been there might recognize it. If the wind's going to be coming through from the east or somewhere there in a blow, not a bad spot to hide behind that piece of reef. Um, so yeah, that's also integrated. So all our systems are integrated with us. Our anchoring system knows what the tides are from the tide engine. The everything knows where they are from the charting system and the mapping system. So because of all the money we've spent in getting this thing together, and because we've got all these legitimate costs now that come in with our relationships with the satellite providers. Um, we basically run this over a couple of different layers. So straight out of the box, we give you as much free stuff as possible. So stuff that doesn't cost us money, we just pile in there and you're welcome to use it. So we have access to Sentinel-2 is a satellite that's owned by the European Space Agency. And because it's an EU government-sponsored project, they're not allowed to charge for that imagery up to zoom level 13. So we provide that as on that basic plan, and that's selectable. You can get our nav system, and it's a mini plotter. You've got your routes and waypoints and weather overlays and AIS and all the bits that come with that. We've got images. We've got the lens paper charts, which you can overlay on top of your satellite images. We've got GFS weather, 24 hours. We've got 24 hours worth of tides. And then the minute it starts to cost us a little bit of money, we've got to charge to recover those costs. So what we call our coastal pack gives you the addition of going up to zoom level 15. Now, zoom level 15 is probably what most people are used to when they use their normal MB files and OpenCPN or something else from a layer. We put in 90,000 tokens, which probably means nothing to anybody. But to kind of put into context, if you downloaded all the satellite imagery at zoom level 15 from Tauranga to north of the Bay of Islands, that would be about 65,000 tokens. So for a boat sailing out of Auckland or Tauranga who is going to beat up and down that coast, that would consume about 65,000 tokens once off to get that imagery downloaded and on your boat. That gives you the Esri satellites. So this is the organization that we've signed contracts with and have legal access to all their imagery. We include a new tool called True Helm, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's basically a compass rose animation. Those people with BNG equipment might recognize it as an improvement over what BNG did. We have live AIS integration. We go to 3 days of weather, additional weather models, and 3 days of tides. Our blue water version of the subscription is really kind of the king of cruising. Tons of tides for sucking in half of Tonga and Fiji and wherever else you want to be. The zoom levels are right up to 17, so that's giving you down to sort of rock level stuff. You get our tide-based anchoring solution, the tide watch pullouts. We have an advanced weather briefing system that we've built. Anybody who's sailed up and down the Mamanukas in Fiji will know that if you anchor overnight in any of the western bays, at some time during the night, you're going to be woken up where the wind is blowing in the opposite direction to the swell coming in. And you're going to be rocky as hell, and you're going to want to get up at 4 in the morning and leave. So basically, what we've done is we've built an animation, and once again, I'll show it you just now that you can play the weather through, and it doesn't just show you the normal arrows and what have you that the predict winds and what have you do, but it shows you the relationship between the wind and the wave at that location, and puts a couple of vectors up, and warns you at some time in the next weather period that you're watching, you're going to end up in that particular location where the wind and the wave is coming in from a different direction, the amplitude of the wind, the amplitude of the wave, the frequency of the wave, and what have you, and whether and how uncomfortable you're likely to be in that spot. So that's something we include in the blue water package. We go to 7 days of weather, 7 days of tides. Then for the guys who kind of want to leave port for 3 or 4 months at a time and go down to the Arctic or big expedition vessels and stuff like that, you got the top end. You get close to 1 million tokens a quarter. You got all singing, all dancing. That's where you get up to zoom level 20, where you can start to count the feathers on a pelican's back. And it's really cool. I mean, that's kind of the all singing, all dancing. We pour everything into there, but we try and make the more cost-effective packages really useful as well. Right, let me show you. Time for a bit of show and tell. Hopefully this thing is still awake. There we go. So I have my Scout plugged into the side of my laptop here. And this interface, so with the ProjectX tablet, it was basically an Android tablet that had a whole lot of apps installed on it that you could run. And there were third-party apps that we provisioned for you, like OpenCPN. With the Scout, we have basically built our own operating system. And then we've put our software onto that operating system so that we've basically optimized every piece of it, from the operating system through to the application layer, to our relationship with the satellite providers, to the hardware that it runs on. Everything has been designed and optimized to run together as efficiently and effectively as possible. So you don't get your boat skipping around the place. You don't get your Navionics app on the tablet stealing the GPS signal and then OpenCPN complaining because it can't find you and all these sorts of things. So we sort of come a bit control freak here, but we believe the outcome is something which just works from the bottom to the top. So we've basically got the eight tiles on the screen. On the home screen here, you've always got your current speed over ground, your heading depth, and what have you along the bottom here. I'm actually signed in at the moment with an expedition license. You can't, is this bar over stuff, Vicky?
Yeah, it's annoying. You can actually move that bar,
Can I
but
move it?
I don't.
I'm worried I'm going to press something on it. Oh, there we go. Can I chuck it off the side? Yeah, look at that. I
Yeah, I think you
can.
can. That's what I was trying to do earlier and
There we go. Look at that. I can
cover
slide
it.
it as far as I can. There we go.
Great.
Um, so you get your vessel details and you get all sorts of bits and pieces. You get the time. One of the cool things we put in here, just as an extra, everybody gets this, is a set of alarms. You can set up your alarms. You can set up your watch schedules on here and have either an alarm go off at each watch schedule or we've got a ship's bell that just sounds a couple of times whenever it's time to change watch. Totally flexible. You can set up your watch schedule any way you want, allocate people's names to it. When the alarm goes off, it pops their name up on the screen and says you're on duty. So that's one of the functions at the top there. We monitor all the bits and pieces that are running inside the vessel. On the little hamburger menu down here, this is where you set up everything that controls everything. So under the My Boat section is where you put all your boat details, the stuff that you never remember, like your MMSI numbers and your registration numbers, call signs and things like those. Um, you also put in your boat details and stuff because that's important when we're doing calculations around your anchoring and things. And then we had a little bit of fun and we thought we'd give you a whole heap of choices that you could choose from in terms of the little icon that represents your boat as it goes around the world. And at the bottom there, we've even got a rubber duck, a battleship, a sea turtle, and a seagull, if you really are that way inclined. So that's the boat settings. Back over here, up bottom to say save. We've got our units. So your units are set right throughout the whole platform. Whatever you set here works in the nav app and the tides app and the anchor app and the helming app. And we've got some quick ones. So for your US guys, you just press the US boat and we've pre-selected all the strange units that you guys tend to use. We have the maritime, which normal people kind of use, and then if you are sailing in the European Union, you can go onto a mix of bits and pieces that they use. You can override any of these. Any of these can be changed on the fly, but it's presets. And if you really, really want to, down the bottom, you can push a slider and you can actually change these by the app. If you particularly like your anchoring in fathoms or something, you can do that and override the anchoring app. So there's a fair level of flexibility in there. I mentioned earlier, so we connect to NEMA sources. This has probably been one of the biggest chatting points in various forums and WhatsApp groups and direct calls and stuff. So, yep, we connect to multiple NEMA sources. We've got our built-in serial GPS, which is kind of the default if you're running. We've got what they call a UDP connector, which is generally good if you've got a source that's somewhere on your boat of data. You know what port it's on, but you don't know what address it's on. It just kind of scans everywhere and finds it. Then you've got your TCP, which is what most people use when they connect to their predictive and data hub or their yachting devices or their Vespa or whatever other sort of device they have already on their boat. In our store, we're actually now become a New Zealand stockist of the yachting devices gear. So we've now got the yachting devices Wi-Fi dongles that will take your NEMA data and put it out into Wi-Fi. Or we've actually also got one here. This one here I'm holding, probably can't see me because I'm sharing my screen, but is an Ethernet gateway. So it's a wired connection. You can, if you've got an Ethernet cable that runs, you can plug it in. We also do Signal K as a source that came through as a query the other day. So Signal K, any tech head will know what that is and probably park that there. And we do sentence filtering. So there's tons of data floating around on your network. You may not want it all. You may want it all. You can go and basically select what it is that you'd like to have. So that's basically giving you as many options as possible as to how to get the data off your instruments onto your NEMA network and then into this particular device. Um, we've got a second section of NEMA data. So what we're looking at, and this isn't really working now, but this is future proof. So this has been set up for you to select certain NEMA data and actually send it to our cloud servers, and have it stored and logged there on a permanent or semi-permanent basis, whatever you choose. So if you're tracking engine data, your oil pressure and various temperatures around the motor, revs, consumption, what have you, all that data will be on the NEMA network, and we can have you sending that off and storing it on one of our servers. And when you've next got to have your engine serviced, you can turn that data over to your mechanic, and he can have a look at it, and he can tell you whether you're good or bad or indifferent. So that's something that's coming. It's not something we're doing at the moment, but the system is fully wired to basically record all your NEMA data, either on the device itself, and we can actually make that available to you in ways that you want to use, or we will store it for you on the internet and make it available in ways that we think you'd like to use it. And that will be just slotted in with what we're doing. What else did we have there? Uh, Updates. So we push out updates quite regularly because we're very new. We do tend to find the odd little bug and the odd little thing we'd like to improve. So that's a continual work in progress. And you just basically go to the update section, and if there are updates available, you press a button and the system updates. You don't have to be, all you have to be is online. You don't have to be in a port, in a marina, in anywhere. You can be in the middle of the ocean, and you'll see if there are updates for certain apps, and you can just update them from there. Nice and simple. And we also encourage every single person that gets their hands on a Scout. There's a feedback button down here. You can place feedback, and you can report a bug to us. You can make a suggestion. You can ask a question. We lead you through the kind of stuff that we'd like to know if you're reporting a bug. The second you hit the send button, it pops up on a screen in our office right in front of our customer services manager who's on this call. His name is Jason. And he will be onto that in a flash in terms of either fixing the bug or ignoring your suggestions. So yeah, that's the feedback bit. Yeah, so that's on there. Let's get into some navigation. So we'll go into the nav app. Let me just go and find out where my boat is. I'm running a simulator on one of our file servers, which has basically been taking this little boat on a trip. I'll zoom right out. On a trip from Naui Marina to Vunda Marina. It started this afternoon. It's been sailing along there, just so that I can track it and make sure that a lot of our tech is working. So it's about to go through that little passage that everybody who's done this, it's going to swing to starboard real soon, and it's going to go up through that passage at the top. So this is the layout that we use in terms of our screen. This is our version of what you would be using if you're using OpenCPN or your BNG software or anything else. We have a couple of slide outs on the right. So if I tap the slide outs, you've got a windrose with all your wind information that's coming from NEMA, your speed and heading information, and your depth information, and it's kind of plotting your depth as you go. So that you can just slide away when you need it and don't need it. So if you'd put in the address of your NEMA supply in that first screen, this is where you kind of get the benefits of that. You've got down the left-hand side, you've got these buttons which drive the sort of standard things you'd expect from a chart plotter. So the one right at the top is where I tap to find where the boat had got to. That basically centers the screen in your boat. The next one down is where we get to our layers. So this is where we put layer upon layer of really cool charting and satellite imagery. So if we go to the base map right now, you can see it's saying there that we've got a Bing base map. And if I zoom in and I come into this channel over here, as I come in, this is literally coming in directly from the Bing servers as in real time. So we can go in and down the bottom here, I don't know if you can see, if I move my mouse, can you actually see it? Hopefully you
Yeah,
can.
yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so that's the zoom level down there that we currently zoomed into. So that's a zoom 16. All right. That's kind of where things like OpenCPN will normally get you. And this is always as good as your imagery. So what I'll do is on the right here, I will switch across to Google imagery of the same spot. We're now looking, and that literally in that instance, I switched my source from the Google imagery to Bing, from Bing, and you can actually see it. I can see the watermark there. It says 2026 Google. So this is the very latest imagery that Google have available, and that's zoom 16, so that's not even that impressive. You start to come in on this edge here. You can start to literally see down to the rocks and pebbles on the side of that passage that you're going to come through. What I might do at this stage, I'm going to take a short trip. So I'm going to go to the waypoints, and I've got a waypoint set at Mana, and I'm going to hit this little button with a circle on it, and it's going to take me to Mana Island. And there is Mana Island. And if I now start to come into the channel on the entrance here, 16, that's 16. We're coming down now, 17, 18. You're really starting to get down to the seaweed on the rocks. And I've been through this passage maybe 15 or 20 times. In fact, the last time we came out of this passage, just before we headed to Vanuatu, there was a sailboat on its side on that reef right there, waiting for the tide to come in. Right. So that's our base maps. And as I say, there's a selection of base maps here that we have from all over the place. This has got the Esri imagery, which is the downloadable imagery. We'll get to that in a second. Further down this list of layers, probably not massively of interest to most people on this call. We've got all the NOAA charts, the NOAA charts on here of all the US waterways, which you can download. We don't download them as a default, but any of these you can open up. You can tick a box and you can download it when you're online, and it comes down and can be used offline without a problem. We have okay, so the lens charts, the New Zealand's lens charts will appear under what we call nautical charts. I don't have any loaded at the moment, but they will be loaded when the device gets shipped. And we have offline charts. Now, offline charts, if you have a Blue Water subscription, we allow you to take your SD card out of your drawer that might have a whole lot of MB tile files you've collected over the years, and you can pop that into the SD card slot on the side of the tablet, and that hitting that option there will catalog the entire SD card for you, and it'll make all your MB tile files that you've collected over the ages available as overlays in this interface. So we can't supply those MB tile files anymore because of the licensing agreements we now have. But if you happen to have MB tile files from another source, you're welcome to plug them in the side and use them. The third, last area down the bottom here, you can see it says downloaded areas. So I will now do a hop and a skip. I'm going to miss a couple of buttons. Why not? I'll do something. So the third button down is a waypoint. And you noticed earlier, every time I was touching the screen, because I was kind of using it with the wrong hand. If I press and hold, you can add a waypoint. You can add a waypoint with details, or you can start a route. Anybody who's used OpenCPN would know this kind of feature. So if you want to make a route, you kind of long press in a spot. You start the route and then you just tap it out where you want to go. And the little bar at the top there tells you 5 waypoints, 1.1 nautical miles, blah, 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 blah. You can finish that little route and there it is. It's shown on the right pullout. I can go to that and I can edit it and I can change colors and I can give it information and I can move bits around and all the normal things you'd expect to do from this type of an app. So I will just come out of there for the moment. If you want to move a waypoint, you just hold and you drag it a bit and you drop it and it moves to a new spot. So what we tended to do was basically put in a route and then sit down and work out what we wanted to miss. We'd sort of put the endpoints in and then work from there. Make sure you weren't running over anything that shouldn't be there. So that's waypoints and routes, and no real thunder and lightning there. One, two, three, four. Fifth button down is starting a track. So normal, hit the button, start a track, name the track, convert the track into a route for somebody else. You can send them the route file, and all those types of things. Okay, so I'm just going to very quickly go and clear the screen of bits. So I'll go back. So you see that down the bottom there, you can edit it, duplicate it, reverse it, share it, delete it. I'm going to take the last option. I'm going to delete it. And it asks you, this is something that's always annoyed me with OpenCPN. When you delete a route in OpenCPN, you don't have the choice as to whether you just want to delete the route or delete the waypoints as well. So here I'm going to go route and waypoints because otherwise they're going to clutter up. So that was some from learnings. Right. Now, we are going to look, we're going to zoom out a little bit on Manor Island, and we're going to be there, but we think our Starlink's on the fritz, and we're near a buddy boat in Musket Cove, and we're stealing some of their Wi-Fi at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the download function because we might not be online when we get up to Mana. So there's a little button 3 up from the bottom here, which I press the download button, and basically I just tap an area out that I would like to have permanently on my tablet like that. And down the bottom there, you'll see it says 8 points, 5.6 square miles, 20 tiles at zoom level 15. So I will go finish. And now, because of the plan I'm on, you can see I've now got a slider. So I can say I actually want mana, and I'd like it at zoom level 17. And I would like mana, and I'd like to use the Esri World imagery, which is basically the ArcGIS imagery. I can give it a name or I can leave it there as download with a date. I'm going to leave that now for now. But now what this is telling me is that's going to be 295 tiles, or those are your of the 90,000 tokens you get. That's basically 294 tokens to download that. And I'm going to press the download button and hopefully reasonably quickly, here it goes, 48, 56, 90 seconds remaining. It's literally streaming this down from the satellite provider and it's producing an MB tile file in real time on the tablet. All right. Done. You'll now notice I have a little piece at the bottom of the screen here that says downloads and it says download. Now, if I'm going to go and turn the base maps off, I'm going to go to base maps and I'm going to say none. So we've lost our Starlink, we've got no connectivity, but I've still got that downloaded just now. So I'm going to click the download and there it is. So that's basically a made in a minute MB tile file of the area that you're interested in, like that. And this is now fully usable offline. So as I zoom in there, I can get all the way to that zoom level that we chose, right? I think it was 17 or whatever it was. So there it is. I could have done that to 20. It would have used more tiles. For each zoom level you go up, it consumes 4 times the tiles. So if you were at, say, zoom 15, it was 100 tiles. It's going to be 400 tiles at 16. I'm testing my math. 1600 tiles, and so on and so forth. So this is really what the revolutionary part of what we've done is. You can be anywhere in the world. You can be in a little bay that's not been properly covered by existing stuff. You can zoom in and you can make a copy of it. And you can store it and it's licensed and it's legal. And as long as you're paying a subscription, you can keep on using it. And those are the regulations impressed on us, not regulations that we wave around. So that is the downloading capability. If I now go to my layers, you will see under downloaded areas, I now have a little 2. And if I go into there, I can get all the details on that particular thing. The date it was downloaded, the GPS coordinates, the number of tiles, blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. So there is how you manage it. You can delete it here. It's got you can delete it. You can do all sorts of things and manage it as you like. You cannot transfer it off the device. That's part of the licensing requirement. Otherwise, people would just use this to make MB files and give or sell them to all their mates. And the satellite providers don't allow us to do that. So that's something we're not allowed to do. Right. I'm going to zoom out. Actually, before I do that, it's interesting to see, even though, yeah, even though we did that at Zoom, just around the island, because we were doing it right down to Zoom level 5 or 6, those tiles are real big, so you kind of get quite a spread on that. I'm just going to turn the base map back on. Let's go back to a Google one. And I'm going to turn that Esri. You can actually see the difference in satellite imagery that Esri gave you for that area over Google. All right. Next party trick is our weather system. So we have a reasonably cool weather system. We do all the heavy lifting for you. We do the grid downloads. So basically, you can have your own library of grid files, or you can download one. We support today 2 weather models, the ones that 99.9% of people pay any attention to, the GFS model and the European model, the ones made famous by Windy and PredictWind 10 years ago before they got fancy and started to do their own stuff. So you go to the download. If you haven't got a group in the library, you pick the model you want. Let's take the European model. We'll take 3 days of weather, and we'll say download. Now we've got our own weather server that basically downloads 4 times a day from the global providers of this weather. So there we've downloaded the weather. This is our particle model showing wind around that part of the world that we downloaded. The color coding ties in with the color bar at the top. Anywhere you tap on the map, you get your wind speed at that location, direction, and interpretation. So we can just tap around and see what it is. The same is for temperature and pressure and the rain and stuff. But I talked earlier about our weather briefing. So if we're over there and there's a little enlargement thing there, if I click on that, this is our weather briefing. So this basically takes all the weather information for this point and tells you whether it's good or bad. So this is saying to you right now, at that spot, you've got the wind coming from one direction and the wave coming from virtually the opposite direction. So you've got 163-degree swing between the wind and wave. You wouldn't want to anchor right there. You'd be a bit rowdy. Look, the wind's not particularly high. It's only 3.5 knots, but you've got a 2.6 meter wave there at the moment with a 14.3 second period. So yeah, probably not a good place to be. You've got your pressure and your temperature. So it basically brings it all into one spot. It also tells you what the state of tide is at that point, and the fact you've got springs at the moment on that date. So this is your tape deck or tape recorder down the bottom. I can hit the play button and it'll now play through the whole weather, including the representation behind. Will every 3 hours basically play that through for you. And you can stop it wherever you want. You can go backwards, you can go forwards, you can do what you need to do. Find the time that you're likely to arrive somewhere and drop an anchor and see what your what it's going to be like, what the tides are going to be like, what the wind and wave relationship is going to be like. And I can honestly say we've had our solicitors looking at this. They say nobody else is doing this, and this is really cool. So I'd say this by itself, when you're going to Fiji, I don't know about other places, but certainly the way that the wind and waves work in Fiji, if you want a peaceful night's sleep, this is probably a good investment. Right, and as so you can tap anywhere, and it just goes where you tap, and you get that same briefing. Often good, where this is quite good as well, is if you're going to do a passage, a tight passage somewhere. When you approach Newcastle, there's a curly little place where you get pretty strong current against wind. If you get arrived at the wrong tide, people have reported like 5-6 knots of current in the opposite direction. This is quite useful for that. That download now appears in my library. So if I go to my library, these are all the grid file downloads. So once again, if you're going to be on passage and you don't want to burn the Starlink bandwidth, you can download that before you go. You download your chart, like I showed you earlier, before you go. You download the weather before you go, and you can minimize your Starlink burn on the way. You can tell that I've been paying for Starlink for the last 2 years. Let's leave that alone. For the I like I really get a kick out of the particle flow the way we show this because I think it gives you quite a good feel in terms of what the weather's doing. But for those who prefer, you can use the old school bobs. And for people who can't read bobs, there's arrows with numbers and colors. So that's all there for you. So the free version, you basically get one weather model for 24 hours with those representations, but you don't get the weather briefing. Okay, bog standard, got to have MOB. So the little MOB, hit the MOB, drops an MOB marker, starts counting off your distance from where you are. Now, remembering my boat is still traveling between Naui and Vunda on the other side of Fiji, so it's probably dropped the MOB beacon back there. So if I go back there, yeah, there it is. It's dropped an MOB. Over there at the top there, it's telling me my bearing back to the MOB, and it's telling me the distance, how far I'm going, and it also tells me that based on my current speed, how long it's going to take me to get back to where I dropped the MOB. We don't make it easy for people to get rid of the MOB because we wouldn't want somebody to accidentally brush against something and lose their MOB when they've got somebody in the water. So you've actually got to go to the waypoints, you've got to highlight it, you got to delete it, and you got to say, yes, I really want to delete it, and then it disappears. Yeah, so that's, I'm sure I'm forgetting stuff, but hey. At the top here, just one of my little pet peeves is that I never wear a watch when I'm in the cockpit or when I'm out doing stuff on the boat. Having a time at the top, which basically takes its time zone reading from the center of my screen, so it knows where I am because obviously it does. It's got a GPS, so it's always setting its clock for the center of the screen. But every now and again, when we're up in Fiji or Newcastle, wherever we are, we want to know what the time is back in New Zealand. We give you a second clock that you can basically set to anywhere in the world. Let's do Mumbai. And that stays in that time zone. So you've always got two clocks. You've got the time where you are, and you've got the time somewhere else, which is, I think, just another useful little thing. We've got you can set your brightnesses, make it darker, make it lighter. We've got night mode, which turns everything a lovely shade of red. And you can turn it down, go back to day. So all those types of things we do. The last thing last thing I do before I leave the page is we've got a lock up here. This has got a touch screen on it. And there's nothing more annoying than carrying a tablet around that's got a touchscreen and you look at it after you've walked somewhere and suddenly where it is not where you left it. Everything is all over. So you hit the lock and I can now run my fingers all over the screen and it's not going to move. It's going to stay locked. The numbers still travel. Everything still works. It's just locked. And you can unlock it only in one spot. So that was a bonus. Um, on the buttons on the side, there's a button with a little house on it. I'm pressing that button. It's going to take me back to the main menu. True Helm is, as I said earlier, anybody who's got a BNG might recognize the piece in the middle. This is gives you your apparent winds, your tacking angles, all the sort of information you need in one place in a very easy to read way. All these panels on the sides are little cog on them, and it basically sensing the NMEA data that you've got on your network. And any NMEA data you've got on your network, you can pick it, and it'll put that data in that box. So you set this up as you like it. You've got your wind data in the middle, you've got all your tacking angles and everything in the middle, apparents, trues, blah, 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 headings, and you can sprinkle the outsides with any other data which is near and dear to your hearts. I'm just going to show you another cool trick, but Vicky's face is over it. Hang on a sec. There we go. So I'm in a demo mode here. Just go to demo mode. there, demo mode. Um, so you go through attack. It'll basically just show you how the vessel goes through attack. Now, one of the cool things we put in here is you'll notice the sail moves on the image in the center, and it's moving to an optimum position in terms of wind angles. So you can see where your sail setting is supposed to be roughly, I'd say probably within 5 or 10 degrees. But the further aft the wind comes, the more it goes out, and we're basically channeling it to the angle on the mast. If you're going to jibe, we're very, very, very aware of accidental jibes. So if you get into an angle where you look like in a jibe, we flash like hell and tell you you've got a jibe warning coming up. And then your sail turns red and everything turns red, and then it comes through and you can jibe. So just being able, and you can set that angle. So if whatever the angle is for your boat that you want notification that you could be in jibe territory, you can set that up on here. We've got the standard data on the side. We've also got plots. So basically true wind direction, true wind speed plotting over various times. So I'll bring that down to 5 minutes. You can see your normal plots and what's happening there. We will be in, at the moment, we've only got true wind direction and true wind speed in here. Actually, no, we can go to apparent as well. There's apparent. But we're going to be putting VMG and a couple of other cool options on here as well. So probably whatever you've got on on the data screen will allow you to plot over time on the plot screen as well. So you can see if you're in passage whether or not your wind is starting to move in one direction or the other, whether this wind is picking up or going down at various resolutions. Right, and there's one of the other buttons on the side here. One of the fellas on the call, Matt, made a really helpful suggestion that it would be really cool if you could switch from that screen directly to that screen. There we go. We're starting to approach that channel now as we go in the evening. So literally at the push of one of the buttons on the side, you can flip between your what we call true helm and your charts where you are. Go back to the home. So we've done navigation, true helm. I'll quickly do tides. So tides, pretty standard. Everybody's seen a tide chart. It picks up your closest tide like station automatically. You can, if you hit stations at the bottom there, it gives you all the stations, over 1,000 stations around the world. You can either search for it and find it on the bottom table, or you can zoom around the world on the chart on the top and find it and make it your default. And under settings, we've got a whole lot of stuff. You can change your WoW formats and discovering stations and what have you, all the normal useful stuff. But on the side here is this thing I talked about earlier. Now, because it's looking at our boat, and our boat is sailing between Naui and Vunda. It's currently in 88 foot of water. I must have changed this. I was tapping on the settings when I was on the settings earlier. So we're now looking in feet for the Americans on the call. So there you can see the gap between, you can see what the depth of the water is, your draft, and at low you still have 73 feet, so no issues there. But as you start to get into a channel, that will come up, because bearing in mind that it's reading your actual depth as you come in. That will come up as you move. You can slide that away. Here is your anchor watch. So I'm just going to go back because I must actually had it running. So when you launch your anchor watch, this is what you get. You stand, you hold your tablet, and you move the little dialy around here. I've just got
Tony,
my
I've got
finger
only
on.
got a blue screen now. I'm not sure why.
Oh, I don't know why. I just wanted to fly. Hang on a sec.
Got you.
Get tired of
Now
me.
got your
There
vortex.
we
Yeah,
go.
here we go. That's it. Yeah.
It's back. Cool.
Thank you.
So I can move the dial. I've just got my finger on it on the screen here, and you basically point it where the anchor was dropped. You can see it's telling me at the angle. I go next. I say normally I don't have a sounder attached to my boat at the moment, but I've got 15 in there. I'm in 15 meters of water. I've got 50 meters of chain out. I've got 10 mil chain because I've got a 50-foot boat. Probably should have 12 mil. And my heart of my bow roller to the water. It's warning me. It's in the orange scope that we're at 3-to-1 on that ratio, and that's that bow height. If you're in anchoring in Musket Cove, you're probably pretty used to a 3-to-1 scope where everybody's packed and tight and the water's real deep. But if you go next, it does the calculation though, because I'm not plugged into a boat. You would normally see a broader donut there. In fact, that you would see you would see that, right? So that's what you'd normally see. Your stern of your boat would be against the where you are right now, your inner and outers, and your so that would be what you would then go to. And as the boat swings around, the graphic on the right changes as if the wind switched here from a northeasterly to a southwesterly, your boat would do 180 degrees in this particular location. You'd end up here. You'd probably still be okay, but you'd certainly see the visualization on the right, what it was doing, which is pretty cool. Kind of getting to the end of this, I think. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see four. Oh, you're not looking at my screen. There. On the right-hand side of my screen, you'll see four big tiles. So we are curating certain apps that we feel are friendly and will play nicely with our software and our hardware. At the moment, we've got Predict Wind Windy, WhatsApp, and No Foreign Land. There are others that we are testing, like the Victron VMS app. And you'll be able to pop those on there at your choice, and they will run and they'll talk to whatever they need to talk to. So because there's Bluetooth in here, I've on a number of times I've had my earpods in and I've had a WhatsApp call on here with somebody somewhere else. So if you're at the helm and you want to have a chat with somebody, you can do that. And you can play with those apps. As I say, we're probably, by the time we ship these in April, we'll probably have 6 apps curated. I'd like to get the Victron VMS app on here as well, because I think that's pretty useful to a lot of people. And if anybody has a particular suggestion or something they'd like us to try, just use the feedback feature in the burger menu top right and say, hey, can I have Facebook? And we'll say no. But yeah, there's it, apps that aggressively use the GPS don't play well with other GPS orientated apps. So apps like Navionics, apps like AIS apps, we're generally not going to put on here because we're not prepared to risk the accuracy of our software for another piece of software. Yeah, I think I've run out of things to say, Vicky.
It's amazing, Tony. My goodness, you've done some amazing work on this. Really, we've got some really good questions, too. So do you want to, you haven't got your camera turned on at the moment, Tony. I
I
just
can do
so that
that.
we
Hang
could
on a
see
second.
your
Let me
lovely
let,
face.
let, let me work out how to unwind myself from what I've done.
While you're working that out, I'll keep asking you the question. So, Aurora's got some fabulous questions. How many nits of brightness, Tony?
1,000.
Wow. So that's compared to 400, did you say? On
This
the
is
other?
2.5 times brighter than the ProjectX tablet.
Fabulous. That's amazing. That's really cool.
And it's got an anti-glare screen. So when you look at it, it's matte. There's no gloss on it at all. So
So
I
I can't
was
see how
hoping.
messy my hair is. Damn it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all right then. That's probably a good thing.
Let me put the camera back on.
Uh,
Here we go.
Aurora also asks on Google Earth and Bing, can you get historical imagery? Like, can you get
No,
historical
not
pictures?
at the
No.
moment. Not at the
Yeah.
moment. But there's a good suggestion. Because well, me, I literally it's taken me 12 months to write this software. Um, I like that sort of feedback. If people can make suggestions and enough other people think it's a cool idea, I'm more than happy to put the effort in and make it work.
Yeah, because I guess it's sort of, sometimes you get the waves or the clouds
Yeah,
or
yeah,
what have
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I guess
we've
it's a
got
good
three or
thing, isn't
four
it?
sources, so you basically you can switch between the sources. But I agree with you, being able to skip through the Google Earth will allow us to do that. We're just got to make sure we don't fall foul of any licensing.
Yeah, cool. Okay. No, that's a great suggestion, Aurora. Thank you. Meredith and Herman asks, is there a provision to reduce data usage? What's the typical monthly data usage we should expect?
Um, if uh, It's what you make of it. So all over the place, we allow you to choose how often you want to update things and what have you. Um, you can reduce it to zero by turning the Wi-Fi off, and just making sure that you've downloaded the imagery that you need between now and the time you want it on again.
Mm,
And you've downloaded whatever files you want and all the bits that you'd normally want to choose. But even with that stuff on, it's not particularly heavy,
mm,
and everything is settable. Even when you want to send your data off to the cloud, our data cloud, you can choose it instrument by instrument, and
mm.
ignore the stuff that's noisy.
So it's not
Um,
like streaming movies or uploading
no,
videos
that's
or
one of the
anything like that.
reasons that we won't put Netflix and stuff on here, is that
Yeah,
it's not for that.
yeah.
It's designed to be used at sea by seamen.
Is your
It's
navigation
yeah,
tablet.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's what it's for.
You've got your iPad for other stuff to
Exactly,
do with that
exactly,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. And I guess if you're avoiding, that's probably the key thing is you're not going to be downloading, hopefully, these images while you're using offshore mode and
No,
Starlink,
not
are
paying the
you?
$5 a gig or whatever
Yeah,
Starlink's charging these
yeah.
days.
So try and
Well,
do this.
actually, that's a good idea, and I know that Jason is on this call from my team. I think what I could do is actually put a data monitor on here so that if you tap it, you can actually see how much you're using.
That'd be good, wouldn't it?
That'd be
Because
quite
sometimes I've
cool.
heard
Yeah,
people
I think,
saying sort of not sure what Starlink's charging them for because it's like a different
yeah, yeah,
amount than what they think
we
they're
could
using.
probably easily put a data monitor on there so that you could tap it and just see, well, how much you've used in the last day, week, month, etc.
Yeah, that would be cool. Okay,
Cool.
awesome. Aurora asks about the plans. Can you easily change between plans depending on what sort of cruising you're doing?
Yeah. So we specifically did the plans the way we did because the example I gave earlier of Tauranga to the Bay of Islands has been 65,000 units, tokens. Um, Originally, we were going to have like 30,000 a month because at that rate, the 26 New Zealand dollars a month, that's kind of what we've been charged. But we realize that that's not enough. You don't want to go from Tauranga to barrier and then wait a month for your next set of tokens
Mm,
to go the rest of the way. So the way we've done it, we said our subscriptions are quarterly. So basically, you pay for a quarter up front and you get the whole quarterly allowance up front. So you can burn all 90,000 in the first week if you want to. So but you're basically tied in for that 3 months.
mm,
Um, and then at the end of that 3 months, you can let it lapse. You don't have to continue to subscribe. At the end of your subscription, you lose the benefits that you had during the subscription. So if you're cruising, for example, and you're 6 months on, 6 months off,
mm,
6 months you're in the Pacific, 6 months your boat's on the hard somewhere, then you just take 2, 3 month bits, and then let it lapse. And then next year when you come back to your boat or whatever you do, you just pick it up again. And you
mm.
could do blue water for the first 3 months and then drop to coastal for the next 3 months. Because once you're
Yeah,
up in the islands, maybe you don't need as much data, you don't need as much zoom. So yeah, we try to design it in a way that works with the way that cruising people work.
yeah,
The kind of the plans that I wish I had available to me.
yeah, that's awesome. Ollie asks, is there a mesh feature similar to OpenCPN?
Is there a mesh feature?
Yeah.
Oh, not mesh. I think, well,
Maybe
quilting.
explain
Quilting.
more, Ollie. Explain
Is,
more and we'll come back
is
to
that
you.
quilt? You mean quilting?
Quilting. Maybe, yeah,
Quilting,
quilting.
yeah, quilting.
Quilting.
Quilting. Okay. Sleep under a quilt, you sleep under a mesh. Um,
A
Uh,
Mozzie mesh.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There will be a quilting feature. We've had like 5 people ask that same question. The,
Mm,
the answer right now is no. Right now, it doesn't have quilting, but enough people have asked for that to make it an obvious add-on. So
mm.
yeah, we'll do quilting.
Aurora asks, can you export a route and share your
Yes,
routes and
yes,
tracks? Yeah.
yes,
I
yes,
think I saw
yes.
the little share
You can
button
you
on
can
there.
import and export your routes,
Yeah.
and you can. This is another nice thing I like about the way we've done it versus with ProjectX. It was a real pain because they always put the files in places that were difficult to get to. when you export a route or import a route or a waypoint, basically it goes to the SD card and comes from the SD card. So if you, like me, you've got BNG and you want to put your WPG file or whatever it is, the GPX file into the BNG, you put your chip in, you do it, and it goes straight. I am working on a way because I've got BNG kit and I can play with it. I'm working on a way to actually send the route directly to the plotter without having to play around with other stuff.
Mm, cool.
Um, so that will be but that's not on shipping date. That'll be sometime later.
Okay. Ollie also asks if you haven't downloaded the file and Starlink goes down, presumably your screen goes blank and you have nothing.
If you haven't downloaded the file,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. So you've got to be
Oh no,
online.
no, 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 no. Well, you'll have in the Pacific, you'll have some really old looking lens files.
Yeah,
Most
right.
the lens files are all
The
on there. But
downloaded
yes,
ones.
I mean
Yeah,
it's like if you get on a plane and you decide you want to watch a movie and you forgot to download the movie before you flew. I think a lot of people are moving to a different kind of headspace.
yeah,
People used to, before they left New Zealand, have to have a terabyte of data on a hard drive because they had to take everything they needed with them, and if they couldn't, they forgot something, they were buggered. Whereas I think the world is changing, and this is kind of the changing with it.
yeah.
Um, so to on, yeah, exactly the same way if you didn't download a movie on your Netflix before you jumped on a plane.
And I guess you're only downloading the route that you're wanting to take, like not
Correct.
previously. You're kind of like downloading the whole of Fiji or the whole of the South
Exactly.
Pacific. You're
Well,
actually only taking one line through that
yeah,
thing, you know?
as I said earlier, that the Indonesia is 288 gigabytes of data. And
Mm,
anybody who's sailed up through Indonesia, I guarantee you, they haven't been to 1% of those areas.
mm.
You know,
You don't need
so
all that massive amount of,
correct. You
yeah,
literally could look at where you're going to go for the next month, and on a blue water plan, you've got close to 1 million tiles to download.
yeah,
Download them. You know,
yeah,
download where you're going and a little bit off the side in case you wander off somewhere else.
yeah, yeah. Good advice.
And it'll be 2026. It
Yeah,
won't be, 1923.
yeah, good call. Aurora asks, what's the processor speed, Tony? I presume an ARM chip. Who makes it and what's the amount of RAM on board? That sounds like a good question.
Oh,
Yeah.
somebody knows what the right
Someone,
questions to ask.
yeah, exactly. That sounds like it's some
It
Swahili
is
to me.
yeah, it is an ARM chip. It is an ARM chip, so it sips the power. I think that was probably the reason behind that question. It's a low power chip. We think you'll get somewhere between 8 and 10 hours, depending on screen brightness. One of the challenges, I mean, everybody wants 1,000 nits, but when you've got 1,000 nits of brightness and you're suntanning your face with that, it chews more power. So if you want to run at 1,000 nits, you probably run it flat in 3 or 4 hours, but you end up with a lovely tan. Um,
I've been all this time I've been thinking that nits is something scratchy that you find in children's hair, but no,
no,
it's brightness on
it's a
screen.
unit
I've
of
learned
light. It's
something
a unit
tonight.
of light measure.
Yeah.
Candelas per square meter.
Yeah.
And it's got 8 gigs of RAM to finish that. We got 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of internal storage. Yes, it is an ARM processor, SD card, SIM card. Actually, it's got dual SIMs, so you can actually put two separate SIM cards in it at the same time.
Cool.
Um, so you can have a New Zealand card and when you're in Fiji, you pop a Fiji card in there as well.
I love it.
Yeah,
Paul asks several questions. Can this app be installed on the ProjectX tablet?
we will be looking at that in about 3 or 4 months' time. We want to get Scout out the door. Um, because it's basically our baby right now. It's not impossible that we can get this interface and this whole system running on a ProjectX tablet, but it's not something I'm going to have the time to look at for another 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, cool.
This is keeping me very busy.
Yeah, totally. No, that sounds great. And you're keen to get it out to everyone before everyone heads offshore, so totally appreciate that. He says also asks, can you interface it with a different depth sounder, like a handheld one in your dinghy, and get yourself an idea about an area? Suppose if it's
Hmm.
not on your NEMA, don't know how that would.
Handheld depth sensor.
Yeah, it would be cool.
I
We need
think
to
I
add
think
that to
some
them.
of the if there are these new handheld ones that actually look like a torch. Is it Paul? You're nodding. Yeah, that's what you're talking about. Now, some of those actually have Bluetooth connections to them. That's a bloody good idea. I hadn't even thought of it.
Yeah, that's
It's a very
awesome.
good idea. I will certainly have a play. I actually had one of those last year, but I let it go and it sank. They don't float, by the way,
Oh.
so don't let it go. Um, but yeah, I will get another one and I will have a play.
Okay, so that's the 3 or 4 month job too.
Yeah. These are great
Exactly.
suggestions, though, Paul. And Paul also asks, in an existing Project X, when do the Navionics and CMAX subscriptions expire? Well, they don't, do they, Tony? Because they're sort of like
They are pirated. They are
pirated
not real. They're
versions.
not new. They are. Um, in fact, um, what's his name?
Bruce?
Bruce. Bruce. My good mate Bruce. I spent. I went up to Whangarei and had lunch with Bruce last week for a couple of hours. Bruce Ballin is
Yes.
the source of all things MB tiles. And I took him through this whole project, and he was drooling. He's going to be one of our test pilots coming up.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And Bruce recognizes that there's basically him that supplies the globe with MB tile files. And it's not something he's going to be able to do for a hell of a lot longer. I know that the hacking family do some stuff, and there are a couple of other places where you can pick stuff up. But MB tile files, in the way that they currently are not likely to be updated much coming up real soon. And they are, and it's because I mean, to be fair, in the conversations I've had with the likes of Esri, who are the most popular scraped, we get the ArcGIS ones, that's Esri. They're aware of the fact that their content has been scraped and peddled around the Pacific. At the moment, they're just turning a blind eye to it. But they're hoping that by giving us the rights to license it and make it available at a reasonable price, that people will choose to use legal current overlays rather than keep on using the ones that have been scraped from their websites.
Mm, yeah, that's fair. Fair cool. Fair cool. And I guess as well, it's up to date data, isn't it? Because stuff does change. You know, you
Yeah,
see stuff
yeah,
on Google
yeah,
Earth and that's just old
yeah,
and your house isn't
yeah,
there or whatever, the marina's not there.
yeah.
Um, Anne and Ken asks, did you say a subscription was required to mount an SD card and access other MB
Yes,
files?
yes.
Yeah. Christine asks, if you downloaded the charts on Explorer and then downgraded to offshore, do you still see the 20 zoom level?
No, we're not
Gotta
allowed
check
to do
your
that. We're
current.
not allowed, they won't allow us to do that, unfortunately, because
Yeah,
we're paying them monthly for the fact that you have them.
yeah,
And if you downgrade, then I've still got to keep on paying them for those.
yeah. Um, Jamie asks, what is quilting?
Quilting is where you take a whole lot of MB tile files and you knit them together into a massive blanket or quilt,
Yeah. And
whatever you
it's
sleep
nice and
under.
warm and cozy.
Yep.
No, sorry, Tony, you go and explain it properly.
No, that's it. That's
Yeah,
literally it. It's a technique of
knitting
taking
them together.
multiple files and making them look like they one.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's literally like making a fabric
Meshing them
quilt.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Knitting, quilting, meshing, all the same.
Yeah. Digital knitting. Digital knitting.
Yeah. Anna Ken asked, are there any plans to add any more than the lens charts? Because obviously lens is freely available, isn't it, to everyone? Is
Correct.
there other free source charting
All right.
around
So,
Pacific or?
yes. So I'm on the ongoing pursuit of more content. It's my once we get this out the door and I can stop focusing on writing software, I've got a number of calls lined up with all sorts of people who've got access to various types of content. One of the satellite providers that we're talking to is a new South American startup that actually own their own satellites. None of the other guys, Google, Bing. None of them own satellites. They license, and they're often tied down by the licenses that they have upstream. But there's a satellite company that actually, a South American one that owns their own satellites, and they're very keen to talk to us. And they actually fly the entire planet 5 times a day. So there is some very exciting stuff on the horizon, and we've built this platform for the future, not for the past. So it's really going to, yeah, there are lots of sources of information that we're finding. I didn't show you. I should have showed you. Let me see if it's still here. If I go to navigation and we go to waypoints and we go to, let's go to Auckland and we go to find Auckland. What you'll find in Auckland, you'll see this overlay over the satellite image. All those navigation signs are from a open source project called Open. It's written on the bottom there. So OpenCMap. So OpenCMap is a source of free overlay information. So if you go into layers and you go into base maps, right down the bottom here, there's a little tick box there. You see it says OpenCMap overlays. If I turn that off, all of a sudden, all that really cool data disappears off the top of that satellite picture. If I click it back on again, it all comes back. So you've got all the channel markers, you've got all the stuff, all your important starboard markers, your shipping lanes. That's part of the free package. So when you overlay that over your free package that you get, and we're looking for new stuff like that all the time. It's my mission in life is to track down as much free stuff as possible.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And the AIS targets, they'll show up on there sort of through your NEMA backbone as
Yeah,
well.
you get all you get. In fact, I keep on realizing there's so much cool stuff in here. I wanted to show you.
Mhm.
Share. I'm going to go back to. In fact, it's here. If you come up into this little cog, which is the settings for this particular thing, you'll see we've got an AIS section. So on the AIS section, you can change the color that your AIS targets will turn to when they are a distance, their closest point of intersection is going to be less than a certain mileage. So and you can change this for yourself. So the way I've got mine set up is that if any vessel, and the vessel could be 10 miles away at the moment, its closest point of intersection is going to be less than 2 miles, it turns red where it is. Right? If it's between
That's
2 and 4 miles, it turns orange, and if it's greater than 4 miles, it's blue. So basically, you can look at a very busy AIS map, and you can look and see far away vessels that are going to become a problem in an hour or two, but not necessarily right now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Um, so that's a cool thing we've put in. You've got the normal stuff like vector lengths, in terms of what a time that your vectors show. We've got the sail target threshold. So basically, if a target disappears off the AIS, how long do you want to keep seeing it there before we take it away? And we've got this also the speed over ground filter. Anchored boats that have dropped an anchor and forgotten to turn their AISs off. They're not moving, but they're still showing up on the AIS. You can set that to, if a boat's doing under half a knot, assume it's on anchor, or whatever you choose it to be.
Yeah.
So this is, yeah, there's just so much. I mean, even to the point, I'll tell you here, if we go to display, um, we've got a glove mode. So if you look down the left at those icons, oh, it got away. Tip something. Those icons, they're reasonably small, and if it's late at night, you've got big gloves on and it's raining, you're not going to hit those. So if you turn glove mode on, we make them real big, so
Hmm.
you can hit them. All right. We've got a high contrast mode that turns the whites ultra white and turns a lot of color white as well. We've got a reduced motion mode because there's a lot of animation here, and that can make people seasick. And Jackie gets seasick. So Jackie said to me, I don't want to get seasick when I'm using this thing. So because she's the manager, we have a reduced motion sensor, which actually turns all the animations off. So you're less likely to get seasick if you're using the device.
I just love
Um,
how you've thought all this through from like just such a ground grassroots level user interface. You're not just some
No,
programmer in an office that's never been on a boat before, like
living on a boat in the Pacific for 2 years can do that to you.
I know. I think it's incredible, Tony. You've done an amazing job. Thank you. I've got a couple more questions. Christine comments that they used about 200 megabytes per day on Passage this week. So that's good to know. And that's just nice.
So that would be,
Clara.
if it's 200 megs a day in 5 days, you'd use a gig. So that would be 5 days would cost you $5 of Starlink data.
Yeah, good to know. Thanks, Christine. Claire asks, how much is it?
Lots. Not as much, not as much as I'd like. Uh, It's actually a really good question because they're 1850, but if you use Vicky's secret little token that she's got, you get $100 off that.
Yeah.
No, you get
75.
$75
$75
off
off.
it.
Yeah.
Sorry, $75
Yeah.
off that. So yeah, but 717 something.
Yeah.
Cheaper double the price.
Well, I mean, considering all the work you've done on this, I think it's a really good investment. And, if you're updating your chart plotter and what have you, it still costs you quite a lot to do. And this has
Well,
got way more cool features, doesn't it? So,
just to put into context a little bit. So when we were doing the Project X project, there was three of us. It was myself and my son Jason and my daughter Tam, and we were doing that project. And for this, because we've written this entire thing from the ground up, and we support it, and we're going to continue to develop it. Um, there's now 9 of us
wow,
supporting this.
that's fantastic.
It's become a big project. And some of these people, I don't know why, feel they should be paid. So
Well, you're here as a business, and we want you to succeed and survive. So
yeah,
don't make any
and
excuses for
as
that.
long as we're able to do this, we can keep on adding new cool stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
And it's nice that everyone can kind of have some input into the features and facilities that you put on there.
yeah,
So I appreciate that. Dirk asks, does it have an email app to enable email import and export of tracks and waypoints to others?
no, no. We we can look at that. The problem with email is that it brings viruses onto things.
Hmm.
Um,
So how would you send how would you
we've
share
got
them?
yeah, we've got WhatsApp. So you can file send something on WhatsApp.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's a good, yeah, totally. Right.
yeah,
Yes.
so you can drop a file into a WhatsApp message and then save that and then load it up. But I'm not old school in this. I'm quite new school in that I think email is a gateway to viruses and threats, and we've locked this thing down, and we wouldn't want it to be hacked.
Yeah, that's a good call. Okay, no, that makes sense. And Ollie, so can we use our TIE to get the tax deducted?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Even more of a discount. That's awesome. For international sailors visiting New Zealand.
Yes. When we were
Yeah,
selling Project X, we weren't GST registered because we were just tiny.
yeah,
But we're now GST registered, so yes.
great. Excellent. Well, I think we'll sign off there. We've gone quite a long time, so I'll let everyone get off to bed. And but thank you so much, Tony, and for everyone for joining us and all your fantastic questions. So the website, Tony, for people to contact you and look at sort of get purchasing them and things like that.
www.vortexmarine.com.
www.vortexmarine.com. And that was
Yeah.
in the newsletter the other day and also on the event on Facebook and stuff. And we'll share that again on this thing on YouTube when I uploaded.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much for your time. I'm
That's a
super
pleasure.
excited to check it all out, and I think it just looks like an incredible system. I think it's going to make a really big difference to our trip this season. So
Yeah, and
thanks, Tony.
we want it to be a community project. So if that's why we put the feedback thing in there. If people have got ideas, questions, what have you, put them in there. We might ignore them, but put them in anyway.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I think you're great, and I really appreciate all your hard work because I know that you're so passionate about this, Tony. You've done an amazing job. So
Thank you.
really, really think that it's incredible. Well done to you and your
Thank
team.
you.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Not all.
See ya. Cheers.